Hello, my name's Tim. I go by Curmudgeon, and welcome to my cellar. Glad to have you here. Got a few interesting things to talk about tonight. I'm going to have to be putting on the glasses off and on a couple of times because I got a lot of stuff to read tonight. Some very interesting questions. We're still working on changes to the quality of the broadcast. We're going to put on some better finish, and I talked to the Bards of Greyhawk today. We're working on using some music, and I've got a new program I've got to learn to use, and a new camera I haven't learned to use yet, but I got to learn to use it before GaryCon, so I apologize now for any coughing or sneezing that I do. I've got a really wicked head cold I'm fighting right now, and with all the other crap I'm taking, it's hard to take more drugs because I don't know how they're going to interact, so I just blow my nose a lot and cough. So, having said that, let's get going. First question. Oh, this is a long one because some of these are rather long, rather interesting. So for that reason, I'm going to read them. Simple question. When it comes to treasure, how would you describe that moment when the player characters find it? I mean, this is a big deal, eh? They have fought and sneaked and puzzled, but the time comes when they find that glory. What do you tell them when they make it through all the monsters and horrors? What makes finding that reward worth all the trauma they have just experienced? And also, what makes it worth clinging to? I would love to have won something in an adventure in one of your sessions. How do you, as the DM, make the successful ones know that they have won the challenge? Okay, well, I'm assuming that we're talking about a convention adventure here. Okay, that's my first assumption. And going on that assumption, I've written adventures where the treasure was nearly incalculable, but they had absolutely no way to do anything with it. I once wrote an adventure that'll be published sometime in the next year and a half about about a fabulous library compiled and collected by this incredible dude that was virtually invaluable. And they got there, and it was indeed a library, but it wasn't anything like they expected, but it was indeed invaluable. One time, in an adventure I wrote, they found this underground apiary that had light being funneled in through crystals and all this good stuff. And literally hundreds of gallons of extremely valuable honey. But they had no buckets, no tubs, no vials, no bag of holding, none of that kind of stuff. So when I do those, it's probably pretty anticlimactic. But I always make sure there's some other stuff along the way. I'm not going to just hold it up there. Now, if you're doing a campaign, well, this is something that they've striven for some time now. They've had clues and tantalizing hooks, and they've gone from step A to step B to step C to step D to where they're finally having the big face-off against the big bad evil guy, and they win. Well, what is it they've been looking for? Have they been looking for piles of loot? Have they been looking for a magical item? Have they been looking for the legendary gem hoard of Melf? In a campaign, they know what they're looking for, sort of. I never just have them open the door and there it is. It's got to be in a locked box or, behind a secret passage or, it's not just anywhere just laying out where anybody could steal it. So there's got to be some interior logic going there. But the big reveal, I guess, in a convention, it's pretty easy because you've given them a hook. You're going to do this and that and free this person or find this thing or whatever. And when they get there, there's a big ta-da moment. That's easy in a con. And in a campaign, I don't believe there is any easy answer I can give you. I don't think there's anything at all with making anticlimactic like all the honey, because if that were a campaign, well, then they'd go and they'd get they'd hire wagons and they'd, buy barrels, and they'd go back and they'd mine it, and they'd get their loot. And then the campaign would go on to the next stage of taxation and inflation. And, those huge scores never last as long as they'd like. That's how I do it. In a campaign is one way to do it, because they kind of know, they've got hints what they're looking for. In an adventure at a con, a one-off, there was the room, wall-to-wall books and scrolls and palimpsests and all kinds of stuff, and they were all about a topic that they would just thought a big flat what the hell, but it was indeed invaluable. Now how do they get them all out of here? In a campaign, that'd be no big deal. They come back. At a con, it's just like, yay, you found it, yay! Everybody take a book, it's over. Here, I'll stamp your thing and say you lived. And I'm not trying to be flippant, but, and that's an interesting question, but I don't believe there is. When do you know you've won? Well, D&D is not a game you win. We see cartoons all the time about, yay, I won D&D, and Parks and Recreation, and, yay, I won D&D. Well, no, it's not a game you win. You achieve a goal, and there's a satisfaction in having achieved the goal, and there's always another hook around the corner. Different ways, different strokes, different input, different circumstances. You do it. I do it at a con one way. Yay, you found it! When I do my Wheel of Blame game, and the last person gets whatever key it is they need to get out and find their way back. It's like click, the door rises up out of the ground, and everybody knows, hey, we found it. Okay, next question. At the request of a game store, I ran Adventurers League for a short time and found it attracted players who saw the experience as just a way to build characters to use at conventions. They didn't expect a real challenge, but rather thought I should run them through the motions and give treasure at the end. The look on the players' faces when the first character died was priceless. By the time I started the next campaign, I had a new crop of players and left Adventurers League behind. Well, that's not surprising. It's, I think, this mindset of players that can't die is another outgrowth of, hey, everybody gets a trophy for showing up. If you are trying to buff a character to go compete in an organized competition, then the ones you're buffing him in should also be sanctioned. Because a long time ago, I realized there's no way I was ever going to let people bring their own characters to sit at my table at a con. No way. I wasn't going to sit down and argue with every yoo-hoo about whether or not he really had that bag of holding or that staff of many wonders, or bull. You get this character, they got these neat things, because depending upon the level, I always give out pretty nice, pre-gens, with skills and things that, items that do things and buff them up in that. I run one-offs. I guess Pathfinder runs a real organized, tiered competition system. I don't know who else does. If that's what the Adventurers League does, I'm not going to criticize it because they draw huge crowds. It's certainly not my style of play. Certainly not. If you're going to come to play in one of my con games and you want to bring your character, expect that they might die. I killed a couple of people's characters, and I made a point of letting their home players know they were dead. Boy, did that get some ire. But hey, you want to bring your characters and I kill them, you don't get to take them home and play them some more. You brought your buffed up character trying to beat me. Take the chance, get the result. It's not always what you want. All right, I used the word Gygaxian. I used the term Gygaxian, and I did say that, yes, it's changed over the years. In the beginning, Gary's writing style was very 40s, 50s. Harold Lamb wrote some great books about the Crusades and the Middle Ages and that and stuff. And it was the style that Gary wrote in, where you and I might write up that the three orcs that are waiting in ambush between them have 11 arrows. Gary would have written that between them they had but 8 arrows. He used a more archaic, and that's just a very mild example. But if you read some of his old articles on that and some of the old stuff that he wrote, you'll see what I mean. He used an archaic writing style, and we called it high Gygaxian. Now, certain of us that worked there mastered it. I did. Frank Menser did, because we were like Gary's personal editors and collaborators and whatever. So we learned to write in high Gygaxian, and it took me a long time to get out of it. But if somebody sent me something like that for something I was doing, and it was in high Gygaxian, it probably wouldn't take me long to slip back into it. Nowadays, Gygaxian means pure first edition or OD&D. That's what I see the term morphing into. They want to play Gygaxian D&D, 3 character classes, et cetera, the pure stuff. That's the standard now, is becoming Gygaxian D&D, the original, stripped down the basics. That's how I see the term morphing, and I'm all for it. Hey, great. Gary was a great friend, and if he lives on in that terminology and that writing style, more power to him. Lucky him. Okay. Long time listen. Okay. Any thoughts or insights on what prompted the creation of the cleric class? Why divide magic into 2 camps? Okay. That's an aspect of the game design that always bothered me. I didn't like the fact that what clerics did and what magic users did was comparable, in that they had to memorize them and then they had to learn them again overnight, and all that. That bothered me. From a kind of squeamish Catholic upbringing to several other game mechanic aspects. And as anybody who's played many of my games in the last 10 years will tell you, that's not how I treat it. Gary created the clerics because we were looking for tropes. I think I used that word right. Friar Tuck. Other clerical types in the Crusades. Bishop Odo, who was a fierce fighter, and used a mace because the Roman Church, forbid their clergy from shedding blood. So they didn't carry edged weapons. They used maces and clubs and morning stars, which is why Gary wrote it that way in the game. He was following the established coda, if you will, of medieval literature and stereotype. I don't treat them today like that at all. I tell the clerics with the pre-gens I give them, you know all the prayers comparable to your level. You don't have to pick them in advance. You know them. Pray them when you need them, but you can only pray as many of levels as you have. But however, if you've got a 4th level and you haven't used it yet and you want to burn it on a 2nd level prayer again, I'm fine with that. Your sanctity, for want of a no, sorry, I told you it might happen. Your sanctity, your standing with your deity, enables you to say so many prayers, call upon him in such a fashion, It's like you get a 4-alarm bell and you get a couple of 3s and a bunch of 2s and a whole scads of 1s or whatever. But you only get to say so many of the time because your karma, whatever you want to call it. All right. With magic users, I use mana and stuff like that. Why he I didn't like it being called magic from the beginning. That's an argument I lost. I wanted to change it. I had an article I was going to publish. I ran it by him, and we had a long discussion, and we decided, he didn't pressure me, but we decided that maybe we didn't need to go there right now because the game was still aborting, if you will. And we'd already had our first, sorry, I'll imagine I'm taking my eyes feel like two pee holes in the snow. I forgot where I was. We had already had our first few run-ins with the religious crazies, so we weren't going to tread on dogma or canon. So that was the way Gary dealt with it. He also dealt with it that way because it was easier to say they got spells of such a level and their spells do such and such than it was to go through that long thing I just did. It was easier to teach the people the game. All right. I don't really see it. I don't really see it as magic in two camps, though I can understand reading the first in the old books, you would. Okay, here's an entry on the Benny Two Spells things. And by the way, I know last week I told you that we're going to give away that lovely bag, and there's going to be some stuff inside of it, and some stuff you can't get anywhere else. I'm almost certain. Let's see. Simple question. Okay. All right. We're done with that. Okay. His thing was power word, kill, and death spell. Well, I'm going to have to let Jim decide on that. Remember, the criteria is two spells that make you absolutely, irretrievably, unresurrectably dead. Let's see. Somebody else was talking about my poker and how he learned to play poker before he rode a bike. Well, I don't know how old he was before he rode a bike. I was probably learning poker about the same time, 5 or 6. I don't know. 4. I don't know. Yeah, probably 5 or 6. Let's see. Okay, I think some of the players who want to play the published adventures want that shared experience they've seen advertised. I buy a lot of published stuff to read and steal ideas from. My wife likes to run the published stuff and tweak it just a little. For her, it's about time management. But only wanting to play official published stuff by the book seems sad. You're missing what is awesome about D&D. For the most part, well, that's a very perceptive, very perceptive comment. And you're right. People hear about the Tomb of Horrors, and they've never played in the Tomb of Horrors, and they finally get a chance. Of course, they want to play in the one that everybody's heard about. Okay, they're going to want to play in the stock Tomb of Horrors, and that's fair. So they can then say it the next time they run into, I played in there. I was doing pretty good until the 3rd level, and then I got smeared into grease. But, they have that shared experience. The buying of all the other people's stuff to look for ideas to lift is old school as you can get. And if you want to run tweaky stuff with your group, that you've tweaked in that's great. I can also understand your wife's point of view on time management. She wants to play, but she doesn't want to spend so much time prepping as she does just playing. And I understand that, and those are all valid reasons to do it. However, I do agree with your final statement. I think you're kind of missing out on the wild and woolly, let's play and see what happens aspect of the old school of play. My personal opinion. It's worth everything you paid for it. Okay. All right. This guy's soon becoming my favorite weirdo. I have trouble reading these, so I'm going to read this verbatim, and then we'll see if we can figure out. All right, it was written at 12:41. It says, "Get out those head-patting, belly-rubbing gloves and say, Tim Kask has a message for you. We used to call those people's rules lawyers, of whom I was one as well. which is why I became a DM. And since this is one of the few forums left, here's a trap. Your party detects a trap on the way in, yet it's already been triggered. Huzzah! It was a deadly one, too. Okay, point of contention. I've seen many games on YouTube where the characters have made it to the end of the scenario, don't have to retreat. They level up in the dungeon, and that's the end of the game. I think people should have to make it out as well. Absolutely. If you're playing in a campaign, that's part of it. Now, I didn't get into all the training nonsense because that came after. But absolutely, you got to go back home. You got to go to your base, wherever your base is, whether it's a well-fortified camp in the woods or a town that you hang out in, and you paid off the locals to don't bother you, or the local constabulary so they don't bother you. Pardon me. Anyway, the trap's been reset, and as they navigate their running out, their sigh of relief turned to a gasp of horror. May only work once, but it's Chrysler. Okay, now it's 1830. I wonder if that question about rules versus story. Oh, I guess he's quoting at the times of my thing. I get it now. Once again, pardon me. I wonder if that question about rules versus storytelling was asked by the RPG pundit. I don't know who that is. Magic items for Harry Potter types. Wand of Somatics replaces the intricacies, or like a meta magic item, enhances the still performed. I don't get to talk very often, so it's just typed to what I'd like to talk about. Thank you kindly. Okay. All right. I have done and heard of traps that reset themselves. And I've done it. People go down a corridor and disable or detect like a spear trap, one of the great old favorites. 6 or 7 thin, slender metal spears out of that frieze, got carved frieze on the wall at varying heights. And they go by and they say, it's been triggered. And see these simple. Now I don't do this, on an arbitrary basis, but I'll have written down that the trap resets itself after 4 people have walked by, or something like that. So it automatically resets, and then when they come back, what do you mean? And, well, you didn't check, did you? It's a magic trap, after all. Okay, I guess I rubbed my belly enough. Enjoyed this video more than usual since earlier today. Oh, he registered for the Wheel of Blame Sunday game at GaryCon. Okay, he's going to play at my GaryCon game. All right, what was the design philosophy of the psionic mechanics you came up with? I remember you saying that they were invented as a counter to mind flayers, but why were they designed they were as not a separate class? Well, number one, all that class crap came well after me. Okay, we had subclasses. Druids were a subclass of clerics. Illusionists were a subclass of magic users. Okay, that's the way those all started. They were subclasses. I felt, and I argued strenuously with Gary, that there were a couple of monsters in there, brain eaters and mind flayers, that the players had absolutely no players had any defense to whatsoever. So and this is at the time when we're still encouraging people to use the charts and tables, on how to populate a dungeon. And so you go through as a good little DM, and you roll it up, and all of a sudden you got a mind flayer and 3 brain moles in the 4th level of your dungeon, and that's an absolute TPK guarantee. If they trigger them, they die. So I told Gary, I said, hey, they ought to be used really sparingly, and they ought to be really vicious, but there ought to be some guy, and remember again, Gary and I were big fans of Doctor Strange. So he said, well, there ought to be the really rare people like Dr. X's X-Men, the really, really rare, unusual person who might have a teeny bit of that. Well, of course, the gaming public went crazy with it, and that really, 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 really rare genetic mutation started showing up everywhere. Apparently, everybody that was an adventurer had it, and all the rest of the masses didn't. Anyway, stupid. It was a counter. it was a way that if the rare person had this, and as I recall, there was something to do with successful exercises and using it well, and you got better at it, and etc. God, it's a long time ago I wrote that stuff, but I think that's how you got better, and now you can start not only using it defensively, but you might even use it offensively. That's where it came from. The gaming public ran away with it. It got caught up in all that stupid class crap that happened in second and third. I mean, dwarves as a class, give me a break. The classes are the generalized classifications: a fighter, a wielder of the arcane, or a funneler of the divine. That's all you need. All the rest of them are subclasses. All of them, the rest of them are subclasses. My opinion. I thought all that was crap. That it, became classes. Hi, what are you? I'm a psionicist. What? They have big, shiny foreheads. Let's see. Next. Okay, here's another. Ooh, this I better read this one. It's another Benny 2 spells. Let's see what I can do here. Don't have to put them on. Charm person and push. He takes you to a charming stroll through the flowers along the side of Mount Jagged, and as he reaches, he's lifting and sharp, and they go, look out, and his charming is over, and you look and find it strange to see the rocks below are rushing up to greet you. And okay, well, however, do you recall, please, that one of the requirements is unequivocally, unredeemably, unresurrectably dead. And with a wish, you could bring that goo pile back to life. So, I don't know. Again, these will all go to Jim. He'll have to see him. He's gonna come on with me. It probably won't be till after GaryCon. And that'll give me right now something to do to tell you about. Oh, there's another spell here. This one goes in to way more than 49 words. I think I haven't counted them all. Death spell says it says irrevocably disintegrate as it causes all matter to vanish. Not even dust. That's a pretty good idea. You're pretty point on. And then cutting somebody's silver cord. Druid ceremony, rest eternal. That one says it prevents resurrection. So I'm glad to see you people are looking at stuff and looking into that stuff. Now, where did I go from? I was going somewhere else. Oh yeah, cons. And when we're going to be doing these things. Today is, excuse me while I get my flashlight. Today's the 8th. And I'll do another one of these on the 15th. And I won't be in town for the 22nd. And I won't be in town for the 1st. And I won't be in town for the 8th. However, I am recording one on the way to GaryCon. I am recording one at GaryCon. So they're going to be a little erratic, but they'll be there. And of course, the one at GaryCon could be, could be an hour. I don't know. We're having Curmudgeon. We're having coffee and crullers on Sunday morning. It's just a bullshit session. I'm going to TotalCon. Okay, I leave for TotalCon on the 20th, and I get back on the 25th, and then I fly to LA on the 28th, and I come back on the 4th, and then I drive to GaryCon on the 7th. So as you can see, the schedule is going to be a little weird and erratic, but we will keep publishing. And one other thing I want to talk about, if you haven't gone to look at it yet, this thing I'm doing out in LA, the Auction of Many Things. Look it up on Facebook. It's It's a really interesting idea, which is why I got involved in it. The fact that they're going to fly me out there for a few days is nice, but I can't be bought just for a trip. This is a real good thing that's going to start a charitable foundation that will help the pioneers of gaming when they, if and when they find themselves in a bind. And that's happened to all too many of us. I'm not one of those that got into a financial kink, but several of my old time friends have, and I've tried to help some of them, but this is a better way to do it. So check it out, look into it. And one last thing, I got a little story to tell. This is the Curmudgeon number 69. Now, when I was a kid, high school, in the 60s, all of a sudden, the number 69 became a big smirky. And everybody was running around buying, jerseys with 69 on them. Temple Sporting Goods couldn't understand why they ran out of class of 69 jerseys in 1966, because those kids weren't even in school yet. And I got one, used some of my, probably my paper route money or something. And because I carried a lot of routes as a fill-in for my dad for a while when he was a circulation manager for a local newspaper. And anyway, my dad saw the shirt, and I was, all proud about it. And he goes, "What's the big deal? You're not class of 69. And I thought, "Oh, geez, Dad, you can't be that dumb." And I said, "Well, that's not exactly what it means, Dad." He goes, "Oh, well, what exactly does it mean?" I said, "Well," and I pointed to the numbers, "we each get done." And he caught it right away. And that was the first time he hit me with a fist. And that was the first time I felt that coppery taste in my mouth from having been nearly cold-cocked and knocked down 3 steps from the first landing to the second landing and landing on my back, literally. Anyway, that number's always had a special significance to me. And on that note, I'll say goodbye. Again, Dice Fanatics. And if you become a new subscriber to this channel, you get a free set of dice from them. The Bards of Greyhawk, who are working on music for this and who have already published 2 CDs of very amusing, adventuring type music, one of which is right here with this great old school art on it, The Bards of Greyhawk. The World of Game Design, helping gamers bring games to the gaming public. Old Guard Games, okay, my new adventure that I'm involved in. And thank you very much for watching.